Did you know that by the time you reach the age of 80, your body may have already lost nearly half of the muscle mass it once had in your younger years? It's true, and this isn't just about feeling weaker or moving slower. There's a quiet, often unnoticed condition called sarcopenia, or age-related muscle loss, that's gradually stealing strength, balance, and independence from millions of older adults around the world. Right now, more than 50 million seniors are living with this condition. And each year, over 300,000 are hospitalized after falls caused by weakened muscles. These aren't random accidents. They're the body's silent cry for help, struggling to perform tasks it once did without a second thought. Standing up from a chair, walking up a few steps, even getting dressed in the morning. But here's the good news. According to recent research published in the Journal of Physiology, muscle loss with age is not inevitable. In fact, many adults in their 70s and 80s still retain the strength, balance, and posture of someone decades younger, while others of the same age may find themselves battling basic movements. There's a growing group of older adults who defy the odds. So what sets them apart? Well, studies show that up to 93% of seniors are unaware that simple daily habits can dramatically slow or even reverse muscle loss. Even more concerning, many physicians never mention them. But according to experts from Harvard Medical School and the Mayo Clinic, small science-backed actions can help rebuild strength, restore mobility, and preserve independence, even well into your 80s or beyond. The challenge? Most people are unknowingly making a tiny, everyday mistake that actually speeds up muscle decline. Left unaddressed, this single habit could be the reason someone goes from living independently to needing help with even the most basic tasks, like getting out of bed. But the moment you change that habit, everything shifts. Suddenly, you're not just surviving the day. You're walking confidently. You're moving freely. You're playing with your grandkids again. Maybe even returning to the hobbies you thought you'd left behind. Today, I want to show you exactly how that's possible. I'm going to share 8 powerful, research-backed habits used by some of the world's healthiest seniors, people still hiking, dancing, and thriving well past retirement. And to bring these habits to life, let me introduce you to Walter Harris. Walter is 78 years old and lives in a quiet town in Ohio. Once a soldier, then a carpenter, today he's a proud grandfather of 4. But over the past few years, his world had started to shrink. Simple things became frustrating. Getting up from the sofa, stepping down his front porch, or even putting on pants without losing his balance. He wasn't in pain, but he no longer felt in control of his own body. One chilly morning, while stepping outside to grab the newspaper, Walter nearly stumbled over a pebble on the path. That moment changed something in me, he said. It wasn't dizziness. It wasn't clumsiness. My feet just couldn't feel the ground the way they used to. Later that week, his daughter, who works as a physical therapist, sent him a video about a muscle restoration program for seniors. The first habit? Something called grounding. Walking barefoot on natural surfaces to stimulate the nerves in your feet and reawaken the body's sense of balance. Walter wasn't sure at first. I've worn shoes practically every waking moment for over 70 years, he chuckled. Going barefoot felt unnatural, but he gave it a try. Every morning, just 5 quiet minutes walking barefoot through his backyard, over soft grass, rounded stones, and cool, earthy soil. No stretching, no sweating. Just slow, deliberate steps, feeling each texture, reconnecting. To his surprise, something changed. Within just a few days, Walter began to feel his feet again. He described it as though the wires between my brain and my feet had been plugged back in. Each day, his balance improved, especially in the mornings, his most unsteady time. Scientists refer to this as proprioceptive training, helping the body restore its sense of position and movement. As we age, particularly past 70, the sensory nerves in our feet lose sharpness. But by walking barefoot on varied surfaces, grass, gravel, textured mats, we retrain the body to recognize movement, improve reflexes, and reduce fall risk significantly. After just 1 week, Walter no longer needed to brace himself against the wall when getting out of bed. And by day 10, he walked down his front porch steps without holding the railing for the first time in years. I don't feel younger, he said, a quiet smile on his face, but I feel more in control again, and that to me means everything. Days 8 to 14. Morning breath, awakening. After a week of walking barefoot on the grass and feeling his own steps again, Walter began to notice something else. Every morning when he sat up in bed or stood up from a chair, there was still a moment of unsteadiness. A feeling as if the blood had not yet returned to his head and his legs had not yet fully obeyed his will. One evening after dinner, he called his daughter and shared this. She was not surprised. "Dad, this is very common. Older people often have postural hypotension. But there is a very simple thing you can do. Just breathe. But breathe properly." She introduced him to a method called box breathing, a breathing technique used by Special Forces soldiers to stay calm and control nerves under stressful conditions. In the elderly, it helps activate the parasympathetic nervous system, reduce vascular tension, and stabilize blood pressure when changing positions. So the next morning, Walter sat on the edge of his bed, his hands resting lightly on his knees, his eyes looking out into the backyard. He began. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. 1 round. Then 2. Then 3. Within 5 minutes, he felt a subtle but definite change, a cool breeze running down his spine, and his mind suddenly calmed. "I no longer get dizzy when I get up from a chair," he recalls. "That feeling of swaying, of falling, just kind of goes away." He made box breathing a part of his morning routine. No fuss, no expense. Just a quiet moment where every breath was placed with intention. And with each passing day, he felt more alert, slower, and more grounded, both physically and mentally. Research has shown that just 5 minutes of box breathing practice per day can increase vagus nerve activity, improve cerebral blood circulation, and reduce symptoms of postural hypotension, a leading cause of falls in older adults. Walter didn't need to know the scientific terms. All he knew was this. He no longer had to grip the arms of his chair when he stood up, and his mornings, instead of starting with fatigue or anxiety, were now a moment of slow breathing, of peace and control. Days 15 to 21. Energy returns from breakfast and every little mineral grain. After nearly 2 weeks of barefoot walking and steady breathing, Walter noticed his body starting to change. He stood more steadily, feeling less wobbly in the mornings, but something was still missing. By 10 a.m., and he usually starts to feel sluggish. A sluggish feeling creeps into his shoulders, neck, and knees. "I don't fall over anymore," he laughs, "but I still don't feel like going anywhere." His daughter, still following her father's every move, this time asked a simple question. "What do you eat for breakfast?" Walter looked at the familiar cup of black coffee on the table and let out a soft sigh. "Probably not enough." She suggested he try a small change, eat protein at breakfast. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just a cup of Greek yogurt, a hard-boiled egg, and a slice of whole grain bread will provide 25 to 30 grams of protein, the optimal amount for older adults looking to maintain or rebuild muscle mass. He tried it the next day, and surprisingly, by noon that day, he was still awake. "Not only did I not feel sleepy, I actually walked around the house 3 times without feeling tired," Walter said, his eyes sparkling with simple joy. This isn't luck. Science has shown that people over 60 experience a condition called anabolic resistance, where the body doesn't use protein as efficiently as it used to. So eating enough protein, and especially eating it at the right time, right from the first meal of the day, helps to wake up the sleeping, muscle building, and repair process. Do you ever start your day with just coffee? Do you ever find yourself running low on energy mid-morning? Maybe, like Walter, you just need a really nourishing meal. That week, Walter went in for his routine checkup. His doctor recommended a few more micronutrient tests, something that most seniors are not routinely advised to do. The results weren't surprising. He was mildly deficient in magnesium and vitamin B12, both of which are essential for nerve transmission and muscle function. He was also recommended to take creatine, a nutrient often associated with younger athletes, but which is actually extremely helpful for older people looking to build muscle and memory. Walter started taking magnesium and methylcobalamin B12 tablets every morning, along with a teaspoon of creatine mixed in water. After just 3 weeks, he noticed, "My hands weren't shaking as much as they used to, and I didn't drop my keys when I opened the door." It may sound trivial, but for seniors, every confident move is a piece of freedom. Research from Tufts University shows that older adults who supplement with the right doses of magnesium, creatine, and B12 can improve their grip strength, fine motor accuracy, and even memory. What about you? As your skin begins to show signs of aging, have you ever wondered what your body needs to function more smoothly? A protein-rich breakfast? Or maybe just a quick test to see what you're lacking? Ask your doctor about a micronutrient panel. It's not a sign of concern, but a way to better understand and care for your body, like Walter is doing every day. Days 22 to 35, recording strength. By week 3, Walter had begun to feel like a different man. He could step outside without hesitating, reach for things without fearing a stumble, and even sleep more soundly. But there was one thing he hadn't felt in a while. Strength. Not just safety, not just stability, but real muscular strength. The kind that gives you confidence when rising from a chair or walking up a hill. That's when his daughter introduced him to something surprisingly simple: isometric contractions. No equipment, no need to break a sweat, just standing still and pressing with intention. Walter began small. 3 times a day, he stood at the kitchen wall. He placed his palms against it, bent his knees slightly, engaged his thighs and core, and pushed. Not to move the wall, of course, but to wake up his muscles. 10 seconds, then rest. I did it while the kettle boiled, Walter smiled, and again while brushing my teeth. Easy enough to remember, and just enough to feel like I was doing something for myself. But after a few days, something changed. His calves, once soft and slack, began to firm up, and when he walked, his steps felt more decisive. I felt steadier, more certain, he said, like my body was finally listening again. This isn't just Walter's experience. Research from McMaster University found that even short bouts of isometric training can significantly improve muscle strength and control in older adults, without the joint strain that often comes with traditional weightlifting. By activating type 2 muscle fibers, those responsible for power and quick reactions, these simple holds help prevent falls and enhance mobility. Dr. Stuart Phillips, professor of kinesiology at McMaster, calls isometric exercises one of the safest and most accessible forms of strength training for seniors. And perhaps the best part? You can do it anywhere, against a wall, a countertop, even while seated, making it one of the easiest habits to stick with for life. Have you ever felt like your legs weren't quite as responsive as they used to be? Maybe getting out of a chair feels slower, or climbing stairs leaves you unsure of your footing. If so, could just 10 seconds, 3 times a day, make a difference? Walter would say yes. That same week, Walter also got the results from a routine blood test. His doctor's tone was gentle, but firm. Walter, your vitamin D levels are low. That might explain some of the lingering fatigue and weakness. Vitamin D is more than just a bone vitamin. It plays a vital role in muscle contraction, reflex timing, and immune response. In fact, over 80% of seniors in the US are vitamin D deficient, often without knowing it. Deficiency in vitamin D has been linked to increased risk of falls, slower walking speed, and even muscle pain. One landmark study in JAMA Internal Medicine found that seniors with optimal vitamin D levels had 25% greater muscle strength than those who were deficient. But Walter's doctor didn't stop there. When you take D3, make sure you also get vitamin K2, she said. It helps the calcium go where it should, into your bones and muscles, not your arteries. Walter began a daily dose, 2,000 IU of D3 with K2 each morning. And, perhaps more importantly, he started spending 15 quiet minutes in the sun, just him and Rufus, his faithful dog, walking the backyard while the day began. There's something about the morning sun, Walter said. The warmth on your skin, the quiet, it wakes you up better than any cup of coffee. And science agrees. Vitamin D synthesized from natural sunlight is more readily absorbed by the body than supplements alone. Even just 10 to 15 minutes a day of gentle sun exposure can support mood, energy, and muscular coordination, especially when combined with D3 and K2 supplementation. Walter didn't lift weights, he didn't run laps. But day by day, he reclaimed his strength, quietly, steadily, and on his own terms. And what about you? Could a simple daily habit, like a few seconds of pushing against the wall or standing in the morning sun with a warm cup of tea, be the shift your body has been waiting for? You don't have to start big. In fact, the smallest things often create the most lasting change. Walter didn't rebuild his strength overnight. He did it one breath, one push, one sunbeam at a time. Maybe tomorrow morning, before you make your coffee, try placing your hands gently on the wall. Press, breathe. Let your muscles remember their job. Or step outside, feel the light on your skin, and give your body what it's quietly been asking for. Because it's never too late to feel strong again. Days 36 to 60. Reconnecting brain and body. Walter had begun to feel stronger. His legs felt firmer, his balance more stable, and his mornings lighter than they'd been in years. But there was still one thing that quietly bothered him. His movements didn't feel quite coordinated. Sometimes he'd reach for something and miss it by an inch, or he'd take a step and feel his timing was just a half second off. It wasn't weakness anymore. It was something more subtle. That's when his daughter introduced him to a term he hadn't heard before, neuromuscular connection. The relationship between the brain and the muscles. As we age, this connection naturally weakens. But the good news? It can be trained, just like any other muscle. She signed him up for a Tai Chi class at the local senior center twice a week. Walter wasn't sure what to expect. I thought it was just slow motion dancing, he joked. But by the end of the first class, he understood. Every movement in Tai Chi had purpose. Every shift in weight, every arm raise, every breath. It was all about control, precision, and flow. By the second week, something remarkable happened. I felt like I was moving through water, Walter said. Smooth, intentional. My hands and feet were finally moving together again. I felt 20 years younger. Studies from the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity have shown that seniors who practice coordination-based exercises like Tai Chi or table tennis experience significant improvements in reaction time, gait stability, and motor control. Even better, these activities stimulate neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections, which helps maintain mental clarity as well as physical precision. Dr. Teresa Liu Ambrose, a leading researcher in brain aging at the University of British Columbia, states, "When older adults regularly engage in movement that requires timing, balance, and attention, they're not just training the body, they're protecting the brain." Walter didn't have to master Tai Chi. He just had to show up, breathe deeply, and move with intention. And with each session, the fog in his mind seemed to lift just a little more. Have you ever felt your hands react just a little slower than you expected, or noticed that your coordination wasn't quite what it used to be? You're not alone. But what if just 1 or 2 sessions a week, in a group with music and gentle movement, could bring that sharpness back? By this point, Walter felt ready for something he hadn't done in years, resistance training. Now, he wasn't lifting barbells or going to the gym. He started with a certified trainer at the senior center just twice a week using resistance bands, those stretchy loops of rubber that, when used correctly, mimic the effects of weight training without putting strain on joints. His routine was simple. Sit and stand from a chair, using his legs, no hands. Pull the bands while seated, engaging his back and shoulders. Raise his arms overhead slowly until his muscles said, enough. The rule? Push until you can't do one more repetition with good form, then rest, then try again. After just 2 weeks, Walter said, I walked up the stairs in my house without grabbing the rail, first time in 6 years. That's not just inspiring, it's backed by science. According to a study from the University of Alabama, seniors who practiced progressive resistance training twice a week gained over 3 pounds of muscle and increased their leg strength by 35% in just 12 weeks, even if they started in their 70s or 80s. The benefits extended beyond muscle. Participants also showed better blood sugar control, denser bones, and even sharper thinking. Dr. Miriam Nelson, author of Strong Women Stay Young, explains, muscle is not a luxury in older age. It's your insurance against frailty, and it's never too late to build it. Walter didn't become a bodybuilder. He became confident, empowered, capable of doing the little things, like carrying groceries, climbing stairs, or standing without help, that too many seniors give up on too soon. So now, I'd like to ask you, have you ever thought your hands weren't as steady as they once were, that your steps weren't as certain, your reactions a little slower? What if your brain wasn't getting old? It just needed a little more connection, a little more challenge. And what if your muscles didn't have to fade, but could come back with just 2 sessions a week, and a band you could hold in the palm of your hand, you don't have to do it all. Start small. Try a Tai Chi video online. Or hold a resistance band and see what your body remembers. Because sometimes reconnecting with yourself, your movement, your strength, your presence, is the most powerful step you can take. Walter started with doubt. He now moves with intention. And you can too. Days 61 to 90. Stepping back into life. Something had shifted in Walter, not just in his muscles or his balance, but in the quiet way he moved through the world. There was a steadiness now, a calm confidence in each step, each breath. His mornings no longer began with hesitation. His nights no longer ended in fear. And for the first time in years, he was sleeping through the night. No tossing, no waking up to reposition aching joints, just deep, uninterrupted rest. The kind that heals not just the body, but the soul. It had been 60 full days since his last fall. Let that sink in. For someone who once feared every uneven sidewalk and bathroom floor, 60 days of steady footing wasn't just progress. It was freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from dependence. Freedom from that silent question older adults often carry but never ask aloud. Am I still safe in my own body? Walter had his answer now. It came quietly one morning when his daughter hugged him on the porch and whispered, "Dad, you're not a burden anymore. You're an inspiration." Those words stayed with him, not because they were sentimental, but because they were true. He had done the work, the daily walks, the mindful breaths, the bare feet on morning grass, the quiet press of his palms against a wall, the first step back into community, into movement, into hope. And now, it was time to return to joy. Walter laced up his bowling shoes again. He hadn't touched them in nearly 5 years. They still fit, barely. The soles were worn smooth, the laces a little stiff. But as he stepped onto the polished floor of the community bowling alley, he felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years: playfulness. He wasn't trying to beat anyone. He wasn't there to prove anything. He was there because he could be. Because his body had become his partner again, not a puzzle to work around. Because movement had become familiar again. A language he remembered fluently. The first ball rolled a little left, the second a little better. By the third frame he smiled, not because he'd hit a strike, but because his legs held steady as he walked back. No wobble, no handrail, just Walter, 78, strong, breathing easy, and fully alive. And maybe that's the greatest win of all. So now let me ask you something, heart to heart. Do you believe it's too late? Too late to feel confident in your body again? Too late to stop worrying about every step? Too late to walk with your head high and say, "I've still got it"? Because Walter didn't start this journey with strength. He started with doubt. And each day, he showed up anyway. For 5 minutes, 10 breaths, one small step at a time. And somewhere between that first barefoot morning and that last bowling frame, he didn't just regain control. He reclaimed his life. So what's your next step? Maybe it's standing at the kitchen counter and pressing your palms against the wall. Maybe it's adding a spoonful of yogurt and a boiled egg to your breakfast. Maybe it's stepping outside barefoot into the morning light. Whatever it is, make it small. Make it yours. But most importantly, make it today. Because the version of you who still wants to dance, to travel, to laugh without pain or fear, they're not gone. They're just waiting for you to begin. So here we are. After 90 days, 8 simple habits, and 1 extraordinary journey, Walter Harris didn't become younger. He became stronger, steadier, and more alive than he'd felt in years. What made the difference? It wasn't magic. It wasn't expensive. And it wasn't overwhelming. It was consistency. A few deep breaths each morning. A quiet walk barefoot in the grass. Protein at breakfast. A gentle push against the wall. Sunlight on the porch. A stretch of a resistance band, a game of ping pong, a mindful step on the stairs. Day by day, habit by habit, Walter rebuilt the bridge between his mind and his muscles, and between his past self and the man he still had the power to be. And now, maybe you're wondering where to begin. You don't have to do all 8 habits. You don't have to do them perfectly. You just have to choose one. Pick the one that feels doable. Maybe it's breathing before breakfast. Maybe it's checking your vitamin D. Maybe it's simply walking to the mailbox. and back with awareness and pride. Start there and let tomorrow build on today. Because the truth is, aging doesn't have to mean fading. It can mean deepening, strengthening, returning to the version of you who never stopped wanting to live fully. So, if Walter's story inspired you, if you learned something new, or if you're ready to take that next step, no matter how small, leave us a comment and tell us which habit you're going to try first. We'd love to hear your story, and you never know who you might inspire. Give this video a like if it gave you hope. Tap the bell so you never miss our next journey. Share it with a friend who might need this gentle nudge. And if you haven't already, subscribe to stay with us on the path towards strength, independence, and joy, one simple habit at a time. This isn't the end. It's a new beginning, and we're so glad to be walking it with you.